The year is 1990, and Agent Cooper is on the scene. This was the year when Macaulay Culkin protected his house from burglars. The Neo Geo debuted for $650, and Deee-Lite reminded us that the groove is in the heart. But we're not here to talk about people that are not vicious or malicious, just lovely and delicious, because today we're counting down Electronic Gaming Monthly's top 10 reviewed games of 1990. Dig. You know this is a great year when Ninja Gaiden II, the Dark Sword of Chaos, is how the countdown kicks off. We'll see a lot of iconic games on this list, but few have as cool of a story as this Tecmo sequel. This is a game best known for its twisted story and impressive 8-bit cinemas, reminding gamers that sometimes a fun action game is more than just a fun action game. Probably the best sequel ever made with near-perfect graphics, challenging gameplay, and intermissions that entice you to always go around further, gushes Ed Semerad. Martin was on the exact same page. Unbelievable! This has got to be the best-looking Nintendo game ever made. Curiously, every EGM critic gave it a 9 out of 10 except one, the fake ninja. Sushi X concluded that using the same bosses from the first game is a letdown, but it's still worth the price of admission. He gave it an 8. Beyond the high scores, Ninja Gaiden 2 managed to win EGM's Best Ending of a Game award, which is what you're looking at right now. Spoiler alert, I guess. Despite some nitpicking by Sushi X, the Dark Sword of Chaos managed to average an impressive 8.75 out of 10. That was almost enough to be the year's best ninja game, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. So here's a fun fact. Electronic Gaming Monthly critics ended up issuing a total of 4 perfect 10 out of 10 scores in 1990. That's a lot. If you went through our 1989 episode, then you'll already know that the highest score they gave was a 9. To show you just how great 1990 was for gaming, eSpook 1 and 2 got a 10 and didn't even make it into the top 5. Yeah, this list is full of genuine classics. Since I brought it up, we might as well start with Ed's perfect score. The perfect game finally happened. Combine perfect voice and a true CD soundtrack with 2, not just 1, full-blown RPGs. Each with lengthy graphic and spoken intermissions, and you get the ultimate in this genre. I'm not sure the voices are exactly perfect, but I'll go with it. This review was so convincing at the time that it made me want and eventually get a TurboGrafx CD just to play eSpook 1 and 2. Martin agreed that it was great, calling it the most phenomenal RPG ever made, and the best turbo of the year. So why is this game only listed at number 9? Well, that's because both Steve and Sushi X gave eSpook 1 and 2 a score of 8 out of 10. The game is so slow for me, complained Steve, but the quality is obvious. Sushi X had a similar opinion. He said that it was the ultimate RPG game, but wasn't that into role-playing games at the time. Even with the naysayers, Ys ended up winning the Best Background Music and Sound in a Video Game award, along with Best RPG Video Game. eSpook 1 and 2 averaged a score of 8.75. You want to know how great Castlevania III is? When Netflix went to make an animated series based on the popular franchise, they went straight to Dracula's Curse. They didn't bother with Simon's Quest or the iconic Symphony of the Night, but instead knew that Konami's 1990 action game was the perfect place to start. I think Electronic Gaming Monthly would agree that this was a wise decision, because they not only gave the sequel nothing but high marks, but they ended up naming it the year's best 8-bit game. As a hardcore Castlevania fan, this is definitely vampire hunting at its best, raves Martin. Unbelievable graphics and a superb soundtrack contribute to the original style of play. Sushi X joked that the return to the original format certainly warms my heart, as long as no one drives a stake through it. He ended up calling it a must. If you're wondering why the best NES game of the year only rings up at number 8 on the list, then you can go ahead and blame Ed. While everybody else was giving the game 9s, He's the lone holdout that brought the average down with his 8. Castlevania III is a pretty good game from start to finish, he began. While it may be familiar, Part 3 is still very, very good. No, Ed, Dracula's Curse is fantastic. Thankfully, those 9s bring the average up to an 8.75 out of 10. I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that Sega was spending a lot of money on licensing deals in those early days of the Genesis. It wasn't just sports stars that got the big bucks, but also Michael Jackson and Mickey Mouse. While EGM wasn't especially enthusiastic about Moonwalker, they absolutely fell in love with Castle of Illusion. It's the game that spawned some of the best Disney games of the 16-bit era, and also Fantasia. "Absolutely spectacular," exclaimed Sushi X. "Surrealistic graphic presentation and superb animation remind me of the classic cartoons of Disney." The visuals turned out to be the go-to for all of the EGM critics. "The graphics are amazing and a testament to what the Genesis can do when a little time and effort goes into a game," raves Martin. Ed said that this is the game that Disney himself would be proud of. All 4 editors gave Castle of Illusion a 9 out of 10. I think it's safe to say that 1990 had a little something for everybody. We've already talked about a ninja game, horror game, Disney game, and role-playing game. So it seems weirdly fitting that at number 6 we have a sports game. Now this is not just any sports game, because it's the birth of one of the longest running franchises of all time, John Madden Football. Okay, so maybe the original Madden was on the computer 2 years earlier, but this Genesis release is the one that cemented it as the king of console sports games. Without question, doubt, or reservation, Madden Football is the best sports simulator I've ever played, described Steve. Ed was on the same play, calling out the perfect gameplay, extensive playbook, and outstanding 3D effects. Sushi X said that it was almost flawless, giving it a 9 out of 10. Even Martin loved it, a surprising turn of events from a guy who starts his review reminding us that he doesn't like sports games. Little did they know the phenomenon John Madden Football was going to become, but I have a hunch some of them sensed it. Madden averaged a 9. There are big releases, and then there's Super Mario Bros. 3. Between magazines hyping the game for months, the Nintendo World Championships putting it front and center, and the Wizard working as a big screen advertisement, Super Mario Bros. 3 was easily the most sought after game of 1990. Electronic Gaming Monthly loved it, but not enough to give it a 10 or name it the best NES game of the year. To Steve's credit, he did say that Super Mario Bros. 3 comes close to a perfect 10. He gushed that it offered the largest, most detailed, graphically superb, audio-enhanced 3-meg masterpiece loaded with perfect power-ups and extraordinary execution. Most fun-to-play game he's ever seen on the Nintendo. That was a mouthful. Ed agreed, starting his review by stating the obvious. Nintendo has done the impossible. They've created a game as close to perfection as you can get. But again, only a 9 out of 10. The rest of the team was equally taken by this masterpiece. "This is the best Nintendo game ever made," said Jim. Martin called it one of the best Nintendo games ever made. There was not a single complaint in the bunch. In most years, that would be enough for a higher ranking and some year-end awards. But it ultimately lost out to Castlevania III and our next game. When it comes to the Mega Man 2 versus Mega Man 3 debate, Electronic Gaming Monthly definitely has a favorite. Showing up with nothing but 9s, Mega Man 3 wipes the floor with his predecessor, which only managed to get 8s. What's more, the Blue Bomber ended up winning Best Sequel to an Existing Game award, which is why it's ranked just ahead of Super Mario Bros. 3. Awards aside, there are a lot of reasons to love this sequel. Mega Man 3 is better than the first 2 games put together, starts Ed. The storyline is familiar, but totally different, with new enemies to learn and overcome, not to mention a surprise ending. Sushi X said the Mega Man is a guy that just keeps getting better. Martin wasn't nearly as restrained. Mega Man is back, and he's mega hot, with everything you've come to expect from a Mega Man game. With an average of 9 out of 10 and a Best Sequel award under its belt, Mega Man 3 manages to sit comfortably in 4th place. Let me sum up 1990 this way. This was the year that Ninja Gaiden was beat up by Ninja Spirit. Going into 1990, I would have put money down on Ninja Gaiden 2 being the better game. I mean, it was the best reviewed ninja game of 1989 and a breakthrough hit for Tecmo. And then Ninja Spirit came out of nowhere and knifed Ryu Hayabusa right in the gut. At least, according to Electronic Gaming Monthly. Simply the best ninja game ever, raved Sushi X. And he'd know because he's a pretend ninja. The movement of the ninja is unique and the weapons are awesome. Ed agreed, but wasn't ready to give a perfect score. Excellent cart which doesn't skimp on the action, graphics, or original Oriental music. Is Oriental music a term people use these days? Maybe I should just move on. It probably won't come as a surprise that Ninja Spirit ended up winning the Best TurboGrafx-16 Game of the Year award, which is one of the reasons why it's ranked so high on this list. Although Steve ended up giving it a solid 8. Sushi's perfect score moved the average up to a 9 out of 10. So here's where things get tricky. By all accounts, Strider probably should have been the top rated game on this countdown. Not because I love the game, which I do, but rather because it was the magazine's pick for Game of the Year. It also won Best Graphics and was the leading reason why EGM named the Genesis the System of the Year. Yet here we are, talking about this incredible arcade conversion at the number 2 spot. I think it's safe to say that this episode has a twist ending. When it comes to the actual reviews, Sushi X had a couple of questions. Why is this game more popular now than when it was a coin-op game? How about the coin-op Willow next? While we never got that Willow port, I think the answer to the first question is pretty obvious. It was a killer app on a system that was barely a year old. It was also a great translation, which is what Steve decided to talk about. Like Ghouls and Ghosts, this Capcom arcade translation is done to near carbon copy perfection on the Genesis. Martin complained about missing features from the coin-op, but he still said the game was top class all the way. To put some of this excitement into perspective, this was the first 8 meg cart released in North America. To be specific, that's 8 megabits, or 1 megabyte for people that are good at math. That may not sound like much, but it was more than double what the average game size was at the time, which gave developers a lot of room to add details to the visuals and keep all the levels from the arcade. Sure, it was quickly surpassed by Street Fighter II and other high-profile games, that shouldn't gloss over how big of a selling point it was in 1990. Strider averaged a 9 out of 10. Remember when I said that EGM gave 4 10 out of 10s? Well, here's where that becomes important. They didn't give a perfect score to Super Mario Bros. 3, Castlevania 3, Mega Man 3, or even Strider, their Game of the Year. But they did give Super Monaco GP 2 perfect 10s. That's right, Super Monaco GP, a racing game almost nobody remembers in 2017. I told you there was going to be a twist ending. Despite EGM giving this 2 perfect scores, it's actually the 2 guys that gave it 9s that seem the most enthusiastic. This is video racing at its best, proclaims Steve. Super Monaco GP is without a doubt the hottest racing game to ever come along for a home system, raves Martin. They're so much more excited than Ed, who gave the game a 10 and started his review by saying that he likes racing games. At least he added that there's nothing more realistic on any system, but where's the enthusiasm? Sushi X seems even less into it. Totally realistic control and feel of Formula car racing. I got fired by 3 different race teams, qualify in Senna, race like Prost, quilt like Mansell, try not to scrub off speed, be smooth, and you can be the world champion. That may actually be the most boring review I've ever read. Bland or not, they still gave the game 2 9s and 2 10s, which of course averages out to a stellar 9.5. That's easily the best review score of 1990. Hi, thanks for watching us count down the best reviewed games of 1990. We're going to be back next Wednesday with a look at the worst reviewed games, and then it's off to 1991. But before that happens, it's time for the question of the day. What is your favorite game of 1990? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to give me your thoughts on this list. I'm currently hard at work on Valkyria Revolution, as well as Air Missions and World of One. We have a bunch of reviews coming up, so I recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.